Hello, I'm Joe Mitchell, the choir. Not done yet with music.
Did you know the University of New Mexico Department of Music has a robust online Masters of Music education program that is quick and affordable, designed for music teachers to earn online without leaving their job? Learn more at finearts.unm.edu.
It's one thing to explain what's happening with my kids, but if you're in my classroom and you see the kids, there's no explanation needed.
Flavor is more than just a curriculum. What I love most about it is how adaptable it is.
My Eastern experience will help me design the future.
Led me to be a justice on the New Mexico Supreme Court.
My Eastern experience led me to be an actor and a comedian.
Explore, experience, excel.
Hello again. I'm Joe Mitchell. I'm the choir director at Tony Hillerman Middle School and Volcano Vista High School within Albuquerque Public Schools. I'll be presiding in this workshop and just helping field questions from the chat box. Thank you for attending Leading in a Culture That Can't Change. Dr. Raul Barcenes is an assistant professor of music at Alfred University in Alfred, New York, and a part-time instructor of freshman studies and music appreciation at Nevada State College. Dr. Barcenes received his Doctor of Musical Arts in Wind Band Conducting from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, Master of Arts in Educational Administration from Chapman University, Master of Music in Wind Band Conducting from University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and Bachelor of Music with a teaching certification from Tarleton State University. He is currently also pursuing a Master of Business Administration degree at Alfred University. Dr. Barcenes has produced a wide variety of creative works, including marching band drill and arrangements, and 2 published books, College and Career Success, A Survival Guide to the First Year Experience, and an analysis of A Chant from the Great Plains. Though we are all muted and we cannot hear each other's round of applause, please join me in welcoming Dr. Raul Barcenes.
Hi, thank you very much. Can y'all hear me all right? Y'all can hear me? Yes, all right, wonderful. Sorry, with this whole Zoom thing, it gets kind of crazy. All right, so first of all, thank you all for having me here. I was actually looking forward to going to the Taco Cabana down there, because when I was going from Vegas, that was where I would stop to. That's the only place I can get some decent barbacoa on the West Coast, at least going through until I got Texas, you know, a real state. But not just kidding. No, but either way, I'm sure the weather's nicer there. So I want to go over through this this whole situation and just understand that when I developed this whole presentation, it didn't come from a place of, you know, conjecture or privilege. This was actually dealt with from what I dealt with in my public school experience. So let's kind of go through this, and at the end I'll have some time for some questions. So just a disclaimer, this presentation will have excerpts of profanity, and it's not going to come from me directly. It's going to come from what I have in there. They're based off my personal experiences, so everyone may have different results, and based on your demographics and culture could be totally different. So if you have little kids, you might want to move them to the side or a little bit when you hear some of these excerpts. So please go ahead. So as we're leading towards our problem here, we have to understand that most people do go into teaching with the best intentions. I don't think any of you all, I mean, I don't know y'all, but I really suspect that most of y'all went in for the high salaries and all that. So we go in because we want to make a difference. And as usual, we're the hero to our own story. So we believe we can do the job, even if it's not the best location. And but before we even get into that, I want to review, for many of you that have taken an education course, which should be all of y'all, Harry Wong's 4 and Rosemary Wong's 4 stages of teaching. The first one is your fantasy. If the intentions are good, you can relate to students. You know, we've all seen the movies, the Lean on Me, the Stand and Deliver, all that. We start thinking about who's going to play us in our movies and when they make the story of our lives and all this. And this is usually before you get your first job, before you even if you've taught a while, before you walk into a job, we have this fantasy of how it's all going to go, how it may have been better than before, or what we're going to do. And in this fantasy, though, you rarely address how the student performance is actually going to go. And that could be in any subject. It's just that, you know, they're going to see we're trying, and all of a sudden we're going to win and it's going to work. Then we get into the survival mode of what we're doing. Here we rely on ineffective practices just to make it through the day. I can even recall a time, even in the past couple of years, you know, we all have bad days where you go into school and you try and run the clock out because you're tired, things are going, you know, snowballs all over the place, and we just can't make it. We create busy work, we whine about the conditions, these kids can't learn, I hate this admin, all this every stuff, the environment's bad, et cetera, but we really have very little accountability for the culture. And this is usually the part where teacher attrition occurs. Now, I will say this, that I hate to say it, but when I taught at the school I'm going to show you all, we would often, when the new teachers would come in, most of us would have a poll to see who was going to go first and how long, because it was really kind of bad. So, and usually I was not wrong. So there was one time that surprised me, but we'll see. So this is where we get into this whole survival mode, but then hopefully we get into the mastery mode. We've gotten a little bit of skill. We've started developing some effective practices, and we're like, all right, we're going to do our job. We're going to do it right. We're going to be more accountable, and we're going to seek different ways to solve the problem. We become that problem solver. And then hopefully, if you're in long enough, you get to the impact section where we have made a long-term difference. We have a long range of success. And, you know, this is where when I've had younger teachers come in, like they've taught 2 weeks and they think they're at this level. They are not at this level. I promise you, this is many years. I'm not even at this level yet. So this is where we all strive to be. So this is where we really hope to get in terms of the impact for our teaching. So let me go into a real example that I talked about. So I moved here from Las Vegas, Nevada, and I taught at the middle school closest to the Las Vegas Strip. Now, I put the demographics of this school. So in 2018, we had 1,000 students, and the building could only hold 800. So we were popping out at the seams. We could look at our proficiency in math and language arts with the whopping 10% and 23% in the state. We ranked 147 out of 159 of all of Nevada, and the student teacher ratio was 24-1. But that is also including the fact that we had 11 long-term subs in the class. So just to show you exactly what it is, because, you know, I could say it all day. I have some proof here that we actually made the news many times, but here's 2 examples.
Second helping of dirty dining.
Well, 13 Chief Investigator Darcy Spears goes to school, a middle school where failure to control cockroaches led to a kitchen closing down and a hefty cost.
A failing grade for pest control at William Orr Middle School cost taxpayers almost $1,000 in fines and fees to the Southern Nevada Health District.
You know, because I don't think that that's right. Having all those cockroaches, nope.
Neither does the health district. They shut down the school's kitchen and student store on March 11th for an imminent health hazard and unsanitary conditions. CCSD says they notified parents via the Parent Link system.
I did not know about that. There was no notice.
I never received the notice.
But the students sure knew about it.
What did your daughter tell you?
My daughter told me that they had cockroaches and I think rats, I believe. I'm not sure.
Health inspectors were alerted when someone filed this complaint, saying, "I observed roaches crawling on the cafeteria floor where the students were eating their lunches. The roaches were crawling from underneath the food cooler." That person also saw dead roaches in the light panel and said this has been an ongoing problem with roaches and rats for several months on this campus. Teachers have installed rat traps in their classrooms, and the roach issue has extended into the restrooms. Health inspectors following up on that complaint documented a systemic, multi-generational German cockroach infestation throughout the school, including the kitchen, where glue traps were filled with bugs. Roaches were crawling on the walls, above boxes of apples, and below where staff served students their food. There was a dead roach on the sink where staff was actively washing dishes.
CSD is facing a lawsuit in federal court claiming school personnel did not follow district guidelines and state law to prevent a fight. Now, the complaint names current and former school administrators along with district trustees and superintendents. Patrick Walker has more from the family that filed the lawsuit.
I was all surrounded and I did kind of get scared. They were spitting at me, calling me names. They were pulling my hair.
Cassandra Delgado is still haunted by what happened after school one day 2 years ago. She was 13 and a student at Orr Middle School. A group of girls, classmates, surrounded and attacked her.
I would try to get out of the hole they had me in, and they kept pushing me back in.
Her mom arrived mid-attack. They went after her as well.
And I saw this shiny thing that they hit me with. It was a brass knuckle on top of my head. And as soon as they hit me with that, I blacked out and I couldn't fight anymore.
They grab her like a doll, and then everybody's just like beating her up in the head.
7 girls ended up pleading guilty to battery charges in the case. 2 served time in a juvenile facility. But Laura Leone and her family say it should have never gotten to that point after both she and her daughter told several teachers and staff members about days of threatening messages and confrontations.
So yeah,
Second helping of dirty.
So that I remember that day. That was 7 girls that jumped, or 6 girls that jumped, and it dealt with boyfriend-girlfriend issues. And they ended up, that was a 2 ambulance day because they had to have another one for the mom when they jumped it. So this was pretty much every day when we had, when I taught in Vegas. So, just in those 2, and that's only 2 of them, 2 examples that are easily, you can find those on YouTube. But what caused some of this? So sociological inequalities. In other words, we have issues where, we're dealing with a socioeconomic issue and the kids don't have a lot, so they try and fight for what they do have. Lack of economic opportunities. At that school, we were at about a 70%, 80% transiency rate or homeless rate, which includes transiency, means living at extended stays, things like that. District or geographical politics. So what that could also mean is if you taught at that school or you went to that school, you were automatically seen as a bad teacher because you were there. Family issues with guardians. I had kids that their parents were in jail for attempted murder, all kinds of things, or they were living with aunts or grandmas. Risk versus reward. So the kids didn't necessarily understand what they were risking or what the reward was. In just being in there because they don't know what they have. And the expectations were that they were going to be trashed because they were in that area. So that is often part of the issues we have. So we have this at-risk schools fantasy that occurs whenever we take one of these sort of jobs. And one is the perceived rewards in there is that we're providing help for those in need. We have what a friend of mine, and she didn't come up with it, but we call the white savior complex. She was a white Mormon who came to this school, and she came in with this whole, I'm going to help you in need. And they quickly showed her that wasn't going to happen with that sort of nice demeanor. So she toughened up pretty quick. And after she left, she went to another school and moved out of state. Her husband got a job. She realized there were things that she could have done. So she said, yeah, I had this white savior complex that I didn't realize at the time, but that's what, I thought it was. That they were going to change someone's lives, that you're there, that they're going to understand that you're there to help change their lives. It's going to be easier because you're really trying hard. I used to tell the kids that's an F for effort, which is what we always try and go for, that we're there because we choose to be there. And my favorite one is to build a program, which I think is a lot of crap in a lot of ways because, well, I'll go to that in a second, but that's what we're there, is to build a program, and it'll make the next job easier because I did something with this school, so it's going to get a lot better. And the administration will be flexible because they see that I'm there, that I chose to be there, and they're going to value it. So, these are some great rewards that we have. And the perceived risk is that there's some safety issues, but nothing you cannot handle. Now, I can attest 100% that one time this kid came in with a gun in his hand and said, "Doctor, does this look real?" And I said, "Put that away." So, most people will crap their pants at that point, but most of us, we undersee these schools, we see them in news, but we don't think anything's going to happen to us. There is legitimate risk. We have plenty of teachers that had gotten hurt in these situations. So in our perceived risk, but we can handle it, right? Because how many of us in our fantasies believe we're the one getting whooped? Very few times. We think we're going to always win. That's just the way it is. And we may not have all the resources we have, but we're so good that we can adapt and we can make it work because we're the hero, of course. So this is what the reality is. The students are tough and galvanized. They're not happy that you're there. They don't care because more likely than not, you're going to leave. You're going to leave after a year, 2 years. And don't worry, though, they're going to do what they can to push you out. because they want to be the one in control of that, like most of us. You're not changing their lives as they see it. You, no matter who you are, you're not going to go in and alone change the environment by yourself, especially at first. It takes a while to kind of cultivate. So this is where, you know, you come in and they see that you're just, you know, you're just there. You're trying to tell them what to do. It doesn't work. And there's other distractions more familiar than you, such as video games, relationships, and even elementary and middle schools are having adult style relationships. You don't know how many 6th grade fights I had to break up when someone would say, oh, she was cheating on me with this person. And I'm like, what the hell are y'all talking about? No one's cheating on anything. So lack of supervision, etc. So I mean, and even for most, I'm 38 years old, and I can tell you that, you know, when we had video games, it was me and the game, or me, whoever was in the room. Now they have internet, they can connect with people versus all over the world. They have ways for interaction, and even with their little phones, they can talk and Snapchat, and trust me, we had plenty of problems with that. So there's all these distractions that are more familiar, that they're used to. The administration in these sort of environments are swamped, and even in more affluent schools, they're busy trying to keep parents at bay, where this one, they're trying to keep the whole school from imploding. So most likely they're not going to pay attention to you unless you're in trouble. And because that's this, you know, that's just going to be what they have to balance on. And you're going to be judged by your peers. So, you know, and this is one thing I had in Vegas. I taught college, and then I got tired of the college level. So I went back to middle school, and I had, you know, I have a doctorate from Nebraska, Big Ten institution. And we had other directors at other places that thought they were smarter than me just because they had a band that got sweepstakes or sorry, you know, first divisions and all that stuff. And I'm like, what? Well, you're at the bat school. I'm like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Just because their band did well, then that attributed quality to and intelligence to them. So we often had that issue. So this is what the reality is. And more importantly, you need to understand that these kids have more street smarts than you do. I have literally seen 7th graders, you know, full cops in this. And I mean, their parents teach them, and their family teaches them how to get, you know, when this kid was throwing rocks at a cop car, and the cop car stopped him and said, what's your name? And he said, F you, that's my name. And then tried to run because he knew he wasn't going to give him the name. He knew what to do. Unfortunately, we were watching, so we gave the name anyways. So what happened? So we had an inflated ego. Again, we think that we're better than what we are. And all of us are like that. We're not as powerful as we think we are. And more importantly, even if you come out of undergrad, master's degree, anything, we don't know everything there is to be a teacher. We're still always learning. Even me, you know, I have however many degrees, I'm still trying to learn as much as possible, because you never know. The type of kid that I prepared for when I graduated in 2005, that kid does not exist anymore. Some of you are probably those kids, and that kid does not exist. We have a different type of kid, so we always have to be up on it. You feel as you're owed something because you maybe have a 4.0, a 3.5, whatever in college. So because you got grades, good grades, and all of a sudden, you know, that's going to add to our ego. Some of us had a duplicitous professional intention, which means is we took that job thinking we're going to do good so we can get the better school. A lot of people do that quite a bit. And let me say this, you should only take a job if you plan to invest time in it. And when I taught at Coastal Carolina, we would run into this issue where kids wanted to work at Horry County Schools, which is Myrtle Beach, but they would take a job in like the little outer areas like Mullins or someplace like that, because they're like, I'm going to teach there for a year and then I'm going to come back to Horry County once the job opens up. That's not fair, because those kids do not have, it's not their fault that they're born there and they live there. That's not them. They're there. So these kids get used to this revolving door of teachers that come in for only a little bit and then leave. So how the hell do you expect them to build relationships with you? Especially we're blessed that we're music teachers. We don't get kids for 1 year. Sometimes we get them for 3 or 4 or 7 or whatever. We have that opportunity to build those relationships with them. And we're going to come in for 1 year. And, you know, some of these kids just keep going further and further. So if you're going to take this job, you know, you got to make sure that you're going to stay there for a little bit. We have a false perception of our skills, and we're not as good as we think we are. The environment could also be a mess. Trust me, there's nothing I could do short of walking on water to fix that school with the roaches and with all that other stuff. So the school climate is unstable, and you have just fallen into it without a clear idea of what to do. Thankfully, I lived in Vegas years before, so I had a little bit of an idea, but it was worse than the second time I went, because just to give you my first day there, my bike got stolen. Day one, I went and checked into the office and went back to my truck. Bike was gone. $500 bike. Thankfully, I'm not that good at riding it, so hopefully someone else is enjoying it right now. But we can only do so much. So, and we can't change the school. We can only change ourselves. So we have to reframe our philosophy. So we have to determine if this is a sunk cost relationship. A sunk cost relationship is a relationship of which that is going to be beyond our skills and capabilities, and that we cannot do it. The better way to translate this: how many of you have ever had a relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, and you kept staying with them even though you knew you should have broken up or divorced or something, but you kept staying in there, and you're like, no, it'll get better, and then before you know it, and then when it finally ends, you're like, I wasted so many months or years of my life with that. That is a sunk cost relationship. In businesses, they do this all the time. They may invest in a capital project, but if they determine they're losing too much money, they will end it before they hemorrhage anymore. So you have to determine if this is something that you can do. If it's something that you cannot do, you need to exit immediately. I know financially and job-wise, this is a hard thing, but the thing is you're gonna do a lot of damage to yourself mentally. You're gonna do a lot of damage to the kids, because trust me, sometimes these kids, as street smart as they are, if they smell blood, they're coming for it, and they're gonna come at it. So you need to try and do the best you can to remove yourself from that situation, and so this school can find someone that can do it. And you have to be honest with yourself. If you can't do it, then don't do it. Again, the kids are the losers. So if you determine that you are willing to do this, then realize that you are teaching students first versus content. The content itself, you have a degree in it, you've learned it, you understand music, and I'll talk a little about that in my session tomorrow. But the idea is we're impacting student lives first, okay? We use the content as a vehicle to impact them. I can promise you, no matter who you are, Amor Del Miyama is not gonna come to your funeral and say nice things. Students will, so make sure that whatever you're doing it for you're doing it for students. You have to show kids, not tell them that you're invested in them. You can say things all day. Kids are used to lying, so don't tell them, show them. And I had this principal, and this guy, he was crazy, but I swear if he was a general, every teacher would have walked into battle with him, hands down, no matter if they were going to get slaughtered. He was the best motivator I've ever seen. And he used to ride a bike around school to catch the kids that would try and run from him. And he was not afraid to let them know what it was, right? But the kids knew that he loved them, flat out. And he always used to say this: kids don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that is true. I walked in with a doctorate, and the kids could not give a damn about anything that I did academically. They just wanted to know that I was there for them. And that is an important thing, is that I don't care where you graduated from, if you have the ability to show them that you're invested, that will help. And this principal, I used to see him fire a substitute once because she said something about, well, these kids, he said, all right, you can go, you're done for the day, which was kind of dumb because we couldn't get subs anyways. But I made a lot of money subbing extra classes. I'll say that on my prep periods. But the concept is these kids versus our kids. That connotates a different mindset for when you're looking at these kids. Because if you're looking at our kids, you're taking ownership of the kids for yourself, that you're investing in them with it. If you look at these kids, you're removing yourself from it. You're like, oh, I'm only helping these kids over here. So I didn't realize that until after I went to this school, and I saw that I had a different mindset when thinking about our kids. And are you willing to adapt to the situation as needed? You have to know it and compare it to everything around it. Now, let me say this. I'm a bit of a hustler. So like if I'm bored, I'll do whatever. So when I was in Vegas, I taught at the middle school. I taught at a college part-time, but I would also Uber drive just because I was bored. What else am I going to do in Vegas? So I spent a lot of time driving around the city, learning about the different aspects and the cultures within the city itself. And that did help me kind of understand the entirety of the environment of which I taught. So, we have to be sure we're creating a plan. All right. You need to know, I know you said you're focusing on students, but you yourself have to know your content. It's going to be more than what you learn in college, more than the subject matter. And I put these for band directors, but you should know that there are certain people out there that are experts in the field, no matter if it's band, orchestra, choir, general music. There are names that you know right away. And even if they seem higher up, I would not hesitate to contact them, because most times they want to help people. So find those resources and use it to help you get better. take private lessons. Even when I was over there, I was taking private clarinet lessons because I wanted to get better at it. And because one of the things that you're going to have to learn is in these sort of situations, you will not be able to learn on the job. I promise you. There was this one time, I still remember, I had to go inside, call his parents, and then the moment we go outside or go out the office, there was a kid with a bleeding thing right here, like he had blood coming down his forehead, and this lasted about a minute. And I said, "What went on?" He says, "Oh, sir, I don't snitch." So that was a whole day. Apparently I was teaching orchestra. They were launching bows at each other just in the time that it took to call a parent, and then the kid cut himself. So you don't have the ability to learn on the job and fix things. You need to get better at that on your own time. So make sure that you are doing everything you can outside and that's just your own professional development. So be sure you're doing that. How to create a plan. All right. Let's just understand this. Kids will fight back. High transience rate does not allow them to be comfortable. And if a teacher attrition will show that they cannot trust them. And more importantly, some of their adults that they do trust in their life have taught them that the people visiting are going to oppress them. So that is something. Does someone have a mic on?
Yes, I'm looking for him to mute them.
Okay, all right. I was like, what, did they turn the stadium thing on? Because my office is right by the stadium. But adults, they know, have taught them that people coming in are not there to help them, even though you're there. So they're going to trust those people, and that's going to be part of it. And even more, adults will fight back, because if you tell an adult you have an issue with a kid, what they're interpreting as that I don't know how to raise my child. Parents don't believe that you're actually looking out for their kid, and that it's a reflection of their parenting. So in some ways, you have to fight parents. There were many times that I got cussed out by many parents when their kids were obviously doing something bad, but it was like, you're not, I'm tired of y'all picking on my child. I'm like, yes, man, we told your child to punch someone in the face. Yeah, that was us. We created that mess. But they take that as a reflection on their parenting. So you have to understand that these are issues that will occur. How to develop your classroom environment. You need to be realistic about what you can change and what you cannot change, and what are you hired to do. Like I said before, you're hired to teach students, not content. So make sure that whatever you're doing is you're not finding ways to exclude kids. And be sure to teach them in how they are versus what you want them to be. Check your privilege first and foremost, because you don't know exactly what kids are going through. That is not always the case. Just because you saw it on television doesn't mean that you know exactly what it is. And then you can find ways to build healthy competition. For many schools, we found that, and I was the one school that did this. They did like a Hogwarts model for kids. What they did was they divided the groups or the middle school into like 4 houses, and they put them in these houses, and they would allow healthy competition within themselves. And of course, if there were things that kids did that required discipline, it was to track from the total points of the house. But when then thing at the end of the quarter or whatever, they had the 4 flags outside, so they would get ranked up. So that was some sort of healthy competition. And more importantly, and I cannot stress this enough, don't take any of this personal, because you don't understand them. They're kids. Trust me, all of us were moody kids at one point. Don't take it personal. Classroom norms are a teacher, so are rules. So know that we're hired to teach. And the reason I bring this up has to deal specifically with profanity. Okay. There were times when I realized that I was spending more time correcting bad language than I was actually teaching music. So this is an interesting thing that people think it's that I'm just letting things go. But I mean, what am I hired to do? I'm here to teach kids, not to tell them how to talk. And that takes away from the overall experience. And also, we have to understand that it might be a cultural vernacular of the area. Because I remember specifically, I used to have this talk. I have it one time every year. I'm like, guys, try and move towards, I was moving towards academic. I'm like, guys, say, I'm surprised, not that shit got me fucked up. Or, shut up or be quiet, not shut the fuck up. You don't need to say that. And they're like, oh, it is because they're used to hearing that in their own thing. So, and, so that's often part of what happened. So, I mean, I did that one time, and then after that, I just let it go. and know what your administration will support. We had a teacher once that tried to write kids up for not having pencils. Do you really think that your principal or your assistant principal, who's dealing with 4 fights, 3 cyberbullying, all stuff, is going to really spend time with that? No. So know what they were. And are your rules aligned with the school discipline plan? And if any of you are in the PBIS system, which I will just say I hate myself, but if in there, because I remember it took us like 2 days to figure out that the kids could have something like 67 chances or something before something bad happened to them. The kids figured it out in like an hour. So, so if it's not aligned with the discipline plan, you're going to have to move towards that. And don't do this. And this is why this part of the reason this also came about was I saw a NAFME president once say flat out that if a kid is not behaving, take their instrument away for a week. I'm like, wait, hold on. Well, what the hell? Do you know what a kid in these areas can do for a week? I mean, they could create hell. I mean, you don't do that. Make them play more. I don't know, do something like that. But you should not take away. That's like saying you're bad in algebra. You don't have to do homework for a week. We are real teachers, so we cannot do that. I'm not gonna say who this president was, but I thought it was dumb. And know what the culture of the environment is. So, and not just the school, but the whole neighborhood. So you're there to teach, not change the lifestyle. So when you have your plan, you got to make sure that they know that you mean business. Even if it's like an entrance exit procedure, you drill it in. All right. And make sure you have the rules if it's enforceable. It just don't make rules that are just out of control. I know there was well, I won't even go into that. But if you make a rule, let's just say this, that it's enforceable. Okay. Communicate with parents as much as possible. Now, in that video, you saw that they said something about that they sent an email to parents about the roaches, right? And the parents were like, we never saw that. How many of those parents probably actually have emails? Probably none of them. Or they give a notice out to the kid, which I don't even remember that us doing anyways. And the parent, I mean, it doesn't work. Kids are not going to give parents their things. So you have to find ways to communicate with them as much as possible. Try and do it. And especially in New Mexico, I don't know if y'all have a state law there and that you have to do things in English and in Spanish. In California, when I taught there, we had to have both languages on everything. If you don't make a best friend with a Spanish teacher or someone there, and try and put communications out in at least those 2 languages, it'll make things so much easier for you. So do that. Use your communication. And one administrator once said, he says, we're going to throw enough crap on the wall to see what it sticks. Send out as many communications as possible. It's part of the covering yourself thing. And always keep your admin in the loop. That way they just know. Okay. When you're looking at kids, try not to reduce them to your data points. All right. There are plenty of people that see them as numbers. We had when that principal that I left, and of course we got a bureaucrat in, he came up with a plan to help the school numbers up, which was, he said, we're going to identify those middle level students that are on the cusp of passing, and we're going to focus our effort on those students. Okay, well, that's great. But what about the bulk of the students that were at the bottom that were failing? Well, screw them, I guess, right? That wasn't really, that I didn't think that was cool. And I let them know that in no uncertain terms. But, but they will reduce them to those data points. And they will say, you will have colleagues. If you have not heard this, I'm having trouble reaching these kids because they're Black and I'm white. That was one of my favorites. I have mostly males and I'm a female, or vice versa. You can switch any of these around. I have mostly low achieving kids, or, these kids I have the remedial class, I can't get them better. This is one of those things where we have to understand that we have to teach to the kids, don't make them come to you. Sometimes we've had to say, and even at the college level, we have this too. We had a professor who had a midterm and almost 90-something% of his class failed the entire midterm. And he just sat there whining that, I don't understand how these kids learn. I'm like, if it's 90% of your class, that means you did a shitty job teaching them. So if they're not there, you need to come down to them and bring them up, okay? Because trust me, you can sit there and wait all day, but all you're going to do is be miserable. If you've made the commitment to stay there, you need to come down there, grab them, and move them up with you. If they don't understand if they don't understand behavior, they don't understand whatever, get down there. You got degrees. You know how to move them up. Use your skill. And do that. So, and this is just a point, you teach on your feet, not in your seat. If you're just sitting down all day, trust me, they'll catch that. You need to be mobile. So do that. I have 3 examples. Now, when I was trying to I was collecting data when I said at some point I'm going to write a book about how crazy the school was. So I had 3 recordings that I would just randomly keep the recorder on and hear people talk. And this is them. I'm right there. And they say this without any care. This is one of my favorite girls. Her name was Janasia. She was even to this day, I think one of the smartest kids I've ever had. So let's hear her conversation about a fight.
Bitch did not get jumped at.
I know.
One-on-one. I seen that bitch on the street and I fought her. Period, point blank.
That's why I showed her the video. She didn't care. She was just laughing. Miss Budo didn't care. Miss Budo doesn't even like Jasmine.
Yeah.
She was just on the team because of Cece.
Tampon finger bitch? Yeah. Finger bitch. Nasty. Recorded herself fingering with a tampon, bitch. Use a pad.
Yes.
Oh, a pad.
I don't care if the biggest buffet. I don't give 2 fucks. I don't.
She sent a video to Marshall of herself fingering herself with a tampon and she was feeling salty. So when I went to the basketball game when she was cheering, I was like, tampon, get it? Girl. And she was getting salty, so she went and told Miss Cece, and I was going to fight her after school, but I couldn't fight her after school because the police was there. So I went home and I seen her on the streets and I fought that bitch. I ran up to her and fought her. Period, point blank. That bitch was going to get beat up. Oh, you want to see that? Even if I seen her.
It's a really good fight.
But I didn't
you knocked the glasses off.
I didn't fight her bad enough because
I love that little girl. She was so brilliant. But they say, why do we let them talk that way? Because it's part of their vernacular. The school discipline plan wouldn't punish them, and the friends and family talk that way. So why am I going to use my effort and time to try and correct something that the moment that they leave, they're going to go back to doing? So we incrementally increase their academic language. It takes time, and you're not going to get it done in 3 years, but hopefully they don't go to their job interviews or college applications talking like that. I did threaten once. I said they should write their essays for the state exam in the way they talk and just see what the state does, because they probably could make some good points. And they need to understand that we're not judging them based on the way they talk, that we're not thinking that they're less humans because they had that sense, because they're not scared of us anyways. And we're still responsible for teaching math, for teaching anything. The math teacher still has to teach them even when they have potty mouth. And I mean, also, is this the hill you want to die on? Of everything that you're going to have to combat, this is not one you're going to want. This is another one, Kaijanique, when we're talking about grades.
Like, and y'all stupid ass class so fucking boring, boy. You trying to teach people how to do an essay, like, ain't nobody gonna care. We all getting an F on it anyway.
The food's good.
So you acting like, what you wasting your breath for? What is you wasting your breath for? Do we listen to that?
We're going on Friday.
So, Kaijanique does not care about her grades at all. The thing that we used to scare us oftentimes was like, if you get an F, they're like, I don't care. I mean, what does a grade matter to them? Some of them don't even know if they're going to eat. You know, they don't know if they're going to have light. And I will say this: I had a cancer issue when I was in Vegas, right? And I was taking this data modeling class, and this professor was extremely bad, and I failed the first test, and then I failed the next one. All right, and so here I am dealing with a personal issue, and I'm failing classes, and I didn't understand I was 37, 36 years old, and I finally understood what it felt like to be so far in the dumps that you just don't care. So if you're consistently failing kids all the time and you got your own personal life, what the hell does a F matter? I mean, it doesn't. So don't, grade them qualitatively versus quantity. In other words, work with them on their effort versus what they do. This is why I have some issues with things like smart music and things like that. It grades specifically on things like that. And that's not what the kids are. Focus on their effort versus their performance. If we do that, then they will get better, and they're used to failure. So don't think it's just a work ethic. Some of them have adult problems. So we just make sure that you understand that. And this is one about this teacher here she was a phenomenal teacher, one of the best. And this is what they're talking about her.
We're not even going to her bummy ass class. We're going to Miss Courtney. Miss Courtney, that's my bitch right there.
That's a rude bitch.
That bitch said she was going to hit me with a broom. And I told her, bitch, if you hit me with a broom, I'll fight your old ass on. Gotta hit me. Bitch, I'm that student that's going to fight you. Bitch, if you hit me,
I got a whole paper cut.
I want to pick the broom back up.
This bitch gonna talk about some, life goes on. Like, bitch.
Bitch, and your body need to get fixed straighter. So, all right, Dr. Will, be built like a caterpillar.
So, but the thing is yeah, they talk all that nonsense, but they were still going to her class. They still liked her. They were just running their mouths. All right. So the kids, like I said before, don't take it personal. They have a credibility to uphold and, talking all that nonsense, and they're still kids. She still would have done anything for those kids, no matter what. But that's part of the thing was, they were just running their mouths, but they still loved her. And matter of fact, of that 30% of that math or whatever it is they scored, she was the bulk of that. The whole school, her classes were the bulk of that. So, that's one of those things you got to understand is that don't realize that these are just kids, no matter what, and they're going to run their mouth. Okay. So most important we have in teaching is building relationships. And the most important thing we can do is get with the students, and it's not done by talk. It's done by our action and work ethic. Now, I will need to say this, especially for anyone that's a newer teacher, stay legal. So at the moment kids start talking about child abuse or sexual abuse, something like that, stop them, go to an admin. You are not a counselor. You don't have that you don't want to get in any trouble. So, I've had to call CPS before, and trust me, it's a pain in the ass, but you got to stay legal. You got to do what you got to do. Okay. Identify the kid's interests, your kids, not kids in general. If you have a nephew or niece that is not part of that demographic, they are not the same as your kid. Learn what your kids there are and what they like. Okay. I promise you, if I would have brought, I don't know, Miley Cyrus or any of those people to those schools there, they would have killed me. I had to learn who, Lil Yachty is and Kodak Black and all these rappers that are just garbage, but it helped me understand what it was. Okay. And then that'll help you identify their interests. Okay. And don't judge them. They're already used to people judging them. So, they don't care about your pedigree. Like I said, I walked into that middle school with a doctorate and they don't care at all. And more importantly, even if you have a degree from any college there, that's not all you are. Y'all are humans. You all, no matter if you're, I don't know, 22 or 102, you have a body of experience behind you. You have a lot of skills and experience they don't have. That's what you have, not the damn degree. A degree is just a piece of paper. The experiences you have and everything you have is what you bring to kids, not whatever else you have. So just know that if you can bring that in versus the pedigree, that'll be more useful. And they have to know that you're not trying to change them into something they're not. All right. If that's more important, I mean, none of us would want to be told you have to act a certain way and then be told that for 7 hours and 11 minutes a day and then force you to do work. This doesn't work that way. We would go nuts. So talk is cheap. They're human lie detectors. Know your school, understand the trauma transiency rate, teacher turnover, be honest about it. And this is another thing. Don't assume your predecessor was bad. This is my favorite one. I talked about I want to build a program as if there was no program before you showed up. When you do that, you are inherently discrediting the person before you. And for all you know, they may have been beloved. So if you walk in saying, I'm going to build a program, and they love that old band director or choir director that retired after 50 years, what are you saying? You're saying he didn't do jack for 50 years and I'm going to do something now. So that already puts you in a negative light. Always be respectful of it and, say, or to the effect of, I always say this, I'm just the custodian of this program while I'm here. That just shows that I'm here to take care of it, and you just do what you do. So don't come in and start I'm going to build a program. That is one of my pet peeves. So just do that. All right. And you got to deal with adults too. Administrators, low income, they want to help, but they got a lot of things to deal with. You know how many, I think when I was there, every administrator was there had gotten hit at least once, or some, I'm talking like knocked out, like rolled over things. Of course, it's on Snapchat and Instagram and all that because the kids would film that. So they got a lot of things they want to deal with. They're facing pressure. If they're at a low income school, they probably have lower test scores. They have high trends. They have poverty. They're trying to deal with a lot of stuff. And they understand that having a quality program helps them, but they don't know what to do. They rely on you as the expert they hired to build that for them. So you need to tell them what they can and they see if they can do it. And and with a lot of administrators, is the relationship symbiotic to the overall academic progress? If you have a good band, does that help a better math scores, English scores? If you have a good choir, does that help better math, English scores? It's not teaching the same thing, but does it change the overall culture? That's how you contribute. And even with a community where I was, the mariachi was the pinnacle. Everyone loved the mariachi. Because it was a Latino Black population, but they didn't understand orchestra. I mean, how many of those people were going to the symphony? That doesn't work for them. But they need to be educated on the value of the program, and they need to understand that what you're there for is to the success of their child through however you design it. And more importantly, they're used to failing in judgment. Our transiency rate was so high that a lot of kids we saw, I think the transiency rate was somewhere around like 60%. That means throughout the entire school district, more than half of the kids would leave that school. So that's a pretty high number. So they're used to fail, and it was often because they had to move around, things like that. But even if you're in affluent schools, it was kind of interesting. And one time I yelled at a cop because they were pepper spraying our kids. And I said, if this was at one of the other middle schools, they would have, because first they took 2 hours to get there. And second of all, if at one of the middle schools, if they had a problem, they wouldn't call the police, they'd call the superintendent on his cell phone. And the superintendent would make sure things were done in like 10 minutes easily, because the parents were more affluent. So within that, the administrators have a different level that they have to deal with. And even if they have a high academic, I've known administrators to fire teachers for going from 5 stars to 4 stars in terms of their thing, which is ridiculous, because if we hit 3, we're celebrating. But because they're used to that high level of academic, then there was an issue. And even parents, I used to have to tell parents, I don't work for you directly, so don't email me as if I'm your employee, and don't tell me exactly how you want me to teach. I did do an affluent school that lasted like 3 months. I was like, nope, can't do this. So I walked out because I knew that I couldn't handle that. Teachers, some teachers don't value as educators. Some thought that I was just the music guy that they hired. And even one time I even had one say, because I had a pull-out program in California, and they said, he's just the music teacher, I am the educator. Or some of you they might call your classes specials or things like that, which I think is awful. And they'll use it as a tool. So you have to understand that they don't know either. So have clear boundaries with them, interact with them, with the teachers. Don't just stay in your room. Go have lunch with them every now and then, learn what's going on. And, be transparent with them about your program, but don't ever sacrifice it. If they're having World Music Week in the school, don't stop whatever you're doing just to, because I remember my favorite one is, oh, can your group just play some drums for African? I'm like, what? You think we're just going to pull out some djembes and stuff, and all of a sudden they're going to, get the kente cloth, and we're like, what the hell is wrong with, like, that doesn't work that way. So, music does not teach math. We're not service to the other things. We can help the overall picture, but try and pull away from that and understand that's part of the curriculum. So for you, some things you need to remember in this. This is still just the job. It's not your life. Do what you can when you can, build your own professional development, but leave your stuff at the door. Okay. Once you go home, build yourself. Don't build this, don't do that. I know where the whole COVID thing has come a little different now, which is starting to scare me, because they're starting to think that teachers are on call like doctors, but last I checked, we're not getting doctor salaries. I don't have a doctor's BMW outside. I got a old ass Dodge Dart. So, we're not getting that money. So be aware that we're not going to fix the world today. So you're going to have failures. You're going to take some time, and do not let the schools take advantage of you. You have degrees, you have education, you're still a working professional. Don't do stuff for free, but do things and understand that you still have professionalism that needs to be respected. All right. Build a cabal of professionals. I made this before the whole cabal and QAnon thing became bigger. Cabal used to actually mean something positive, where it was like, you have a group of people that are like-minded and different-minded, and you could build within professionals. So build a cabal of professionals that are going to be honest with you. Okay. They need to understand, if you're doing bad, you want someone that's going to be blunt with you. And build on your absorptive capacity. An absorptive capacity in business sense is, if a company has like research and development, they take track of their successes and they take track of their failures. And that all builds into your absorptive capacity. All of us, how many have come into a situation where like, this is it, this is how it's going to work, and then you go in and it fails miserably? That is your absorptive capacity. Now you will never do that again. Some of us are stubborn and we try it again the next year, a couple of years later, just to see, and it always fails. But that's how we do. Or sometimes you're like, I don't know if this is going to work, and then it does work. That is how we built that. So always assimilate and utilize that new knowledge to build who you are. Keep your valuables at home. Trust me, I went through a lot of phone cords and bikes and all kinds of things. So you don't need to decorate your room with your own personal stuff. And some days you're going to win. Some days you're going to not win. Don't take it personal. Just rest and do the best you can. Some benefits to working in reframing is ability to incrementally change and innovate over time. Anything worthwhile takes time to build. Don't just assume that, if you didn't have success in your first year, first 6 months, first semester, that you're done. Sometimes you need a few whoopings to learn. I think it was Plato that said, you only grow in times of strife, not in times of euphoria, meaning that if we were always happy, we're never going to get better. And all of us have been through things in our life. I don't know any of y'all, I don't think, but I know that all of us have been through things and we've learned from it. So just know that it's still the same thing. You build more confidence and you'll be able to understand more about your repertoire, which is a tool for you, and you'll understand. That's a kind of a little bit of a different thing, but having command of the content, that's part of having command of the content, which allows us to teach better. Build your professional capital. The more professional you are, the more you do, the more that people will be amenable to helping you out or using you in ways that will enhance your profession. Your school perception may change. When I went to that school, they had scored in the ratings of 1 through 5, they had scored 4s in everything. I took the orchestra for 2 years and we got 2s in everything. Then I had the band for a year with the other one and we got 2. So all the ensembles while I was there had gone from 4s to 2s. That did a lot for those kids because now they were no longer the worst in the district, which is something for which, I mean, most people are like, we want ones. But for them, just the fact that they weren't the trash that everyone thought they were really did a lot for their self-esteem. And even when I left, they continued. And you're going to have a greater opportunity for long-term impact because it's more about who you are. And when I talked to Clarissa about this presentation, I articulated that that's what it comes down to, is that we were able to build more opportunity long-term. And, if anytime you can help someone get a win when they're not winning at anything else in life, that to me feels so much better. It really does. So you want to make sure that if that's something you can do, you can do it. And honestly, I probably would have stayed at that school, except that when this school had the job open, they had the ability to design a bachelor's degree in music, first time ever. And I never thought I would get that opportunity in my life. So I was like, all right, I guess I can move into upstate New York and freeze my ass off. So that is part of it. But I mean, the sort of thing is that you were actually doing good work there. So to recap, know if the job's for you, get better at your content, plan appropriately, pick your battles, communicate, build your community, and don't let it go home with you. So I gave you all, I issued a handout out so you can have that. If you're ever interested in the slides, my email address is there. I'd be happy to send them to you. Does anyone have any questions that I can answer at all?
And if you do have a question, if you'd like to just, you can either unmute it or you can put it in the chat box and I can read it for you.
No questions or?
I do have a question actually.
Okay.
Can you tell us maybe like one of your most difficult relationships you've had to build with a student and maybe one of your most successful relationships that you've had to build?
Well, I can tell you about Angel. Now, Angel was a kid. He's now in prison for attempted murder or something. But I had him when he was like literally like I see him as 3 feet. But he was super little. Wanted to play saxophone, right? And I made the mistake. This was in 2008, and so social media was around, but not like it was now with Instagram and all that stuff. And one time, he lived with his grandma, fractured home stuff, but he was really excited about band. And he went and he got my phone number because one time at an after school practice, like my first job was I had to build 6 programs in one district simultaneously because they only had one elective teacher, and that was me. And I remember one time he called me at 8 o'clock at night, says, Mr. Barcenes, am I playing this right? And you don't want to hang up on a kid. I'm like, kid, I'm home, right? So I listened to it and all this other stuff, right? And all that. But the next year, so we got, pretty good. But then after a while, he got into middle school and I was doing that program too. And he started tanking. And I think I kicked him out of the program. That's what happened because his behavior had just gotten so bad. This was a lot when I was younger. And, I followed everything by the book. When you're younger, there's a gray area. And I should have been more empathetic to him, but you know, at that point, he didn't have any adults at school that advocated for him. So he just, you know, which led to a spiraling of everything that kind of went on. Because when you're at school and you don't have one teacher that'll back you up, that kind of sucks. So, I mean, and his life is, I mean, right now he's in prison right now at that point. But in that same class, I also had another kid named Ryan. Ryan, okay, so like I said, when we're younger, we all do stupid stuff like, it was in Little Rock, California, which is in the middle of nowhere. So I'd be hungry, and the kids would be like, "Doc, or Mr. B, are you hungry?" So eventually, I taught him how to use a credit card to call Domino's, so he could order food while I'm doing rehearsal. So we would eat afterwards, which I think we all bring pizza and stuff for our kids. But you know, he ended up becoming a youth pastor and doing things. I mean, I've made him a promise that I would come back to their graduation, and I did. I went back with a graduation. Later on, I actually went to his wedding and all that. So I did get to see him growing from a little sixth grader, which is kind of hard for those of you that have taught a lot. You see people that are growing up and you still see them as a little kid, you know, there. And, you know, that was kind of my successful relationship in that. And I know he's doing good work, and I'm not saying that it was all because of me, but I know that, you know, he had a positive experience while at the same time there were some negative experiences within that. And that's one thing you got to understand is you're going to screw up. All of us are going to screw up. I still screw up, and you can't dwell on too much. You just got to kind of learn for building our absorptive capacity and figure out, okay, well, maybe, you know, because I look at Angel, maybe I could have had a little bit more patience. Maybe, I mean, how many of you think of a kid, and even Janasia, I remember one time, and this was a few years ago, I kicked her out of class because she was talking about this substitute who was there, and she says, "Oh, he's hot, he can get in my guts." And I'm like, God damn it. I'm like, you know what? Get out of here. I don't want to hear an eighth grader talking about getting in my guts. So, and there was another adult in the room that heard that too, because these kids are fearless. And she's like, you know, she still was playing. You didn't really have to toss her out. And I was like, yeah, I guess so, you know. And that's one thing. So even then I could have, I mean, because I couldn't write her up for it. So what did I win in this? So, I mean, there are things that we're all going to do all the time, and maybe we should always do better. But I think that in terms of the student relationship, now, that is to say, I mean, I had a kid at Elon University who followed me, who went to where I did my doctorate. He did his master's degree there because I was there a year, and then I got a tenure track at another school. And I'm like, what do you want to do your grad work? He said, at Nebraska. I'm like, you sure? Are you sure you don't want to? Trust me, pick a new hero, kid. I'm not the one you need. So, but he went over there, and I got him a job in Vegas, and he did really well there. And eventually took a dump his first year, but then we fixed it. So, I mean, we build these relationships, and I usually, that's what I try and focus on. I mean, how many of you can actually recall stuff from your music in college? If I asked you how to resolve an Italian 6 chord, most of you right now are going to be like, wait, that's the 3 or the 4 one. But you remember your choir director or the band director or the orchestra that you had, and it wasn't because of the actual ensemble, it was the relationship you built, you know. I gotta look that up too. I don't remember exactly how to do that, but yeah. So any other, what other questions that can I field with a short amount of time we have?
So you mentioned that orchestra didn't necessarily mean anything to your population, or whatever kind of thing we learned at universities. Did you end up finding at that particular school, you mentioned mariachi, did you find other things that you could teach that seemed like kids were just jumping to get into that?
I did, and we created a music appreciation course. And I'm going to talk a little, if any of you want to come to my session tomorrow about redefining musical intuitiveness, I'm going to talk a little about how to adapt in these sort of situations and kind of reframe it. But I actually learned a lot about what the kids' interests are, and that actually did help out. And some of them did some really creative projects when most times they wouldn't have. But it doesn't matter. But even with the orchestra, as I taught that orchestra class, what we ended up doing was, we would teach, just like anything else, but we would find ways to create incentives within that. So they may not have appreciated the music within itself, but they appreciated getting better. And also the kids know that I would fight for them. Like one time I chewed a judge out at festival because I had a girl who showed up and she had a skirt that went down to like right here, like a 7th grader. But that's what she had. I mean, she didn't have money for clothes. And one of the judges wrote, well, I would never let a girl with that sort. I'm like, you need to mind your own goddamn business, because if that's what my kids can afford. Of course, then the kid followed up with hoes don't get cold. But you know, oh my God, I should just write a book about that school. It was like an adventure every day. But you know, but the thing is they would know that, you know, if someone came up, that they would get these hands on site if they mess with them. And that's, to me, the biggest thing that you could ever do to build in your program. And it does make you feel better, even when your administrators coming at you this way, parents this way, and everyone else. So, but are we out of time? I think we're out of time. All right.
Yes, this session does end now at 2. I want to thank you again, Dr. Barcenes, and thank you everyone for attending this session. The session is recorded, and the recording should be available on the NMMEA websites after, I believe. So there will be more word on how to gain access to those for anyone who is interested.
All right, guys, thank you all very much. You have a great day. Hopefully I'll see some of you tomorrow. If not, please enjoy some barbacoa for me, because I can't.